Welcome to another edition of our KingsIsle Developer Diaries. Today we're going to be talking about something we're calling FTUE. That's first time user experience. Looking at the first part of the game, the first hour or two, and making some changes to make it better. I'm here with our lead writer, Sam Johnson, and our lead designer, Ben Durbin. How different was it playing through the first part of the game or watching people play through the first part of the game, looking at it in an eye of what can we change and make better?
The first few times that I played Wizard, I was getting to feel for it and whatnot, and honestly, when they brought me in to seriously work on the Wizard story, I played all the way through the game, but I did it like a dev. I didn't really do the combats, and I already knew the rules. That was actually a big part of my early playthroughs, was coming in and playing it dumb, okay, I don't know what these spells are and what they do. Okay, and it was very, very eye-opening.
Yeah, it's always very revelatory to watch a player, attack it for the first time, because as a developer, even as a seasoned gamer, there's things that you just take for granted. The fish doesn't realize the water that he's swimming in.
Sure.
And so, watching players play through, and just some of the stuff that they discovered for us, and we were just floored by, like the fact that the sidewalks are safe.
Yeah.
And players not knowing that is amazing. So
yeah, in our mind, we sent you a tutorial tip. We said, hey, sidewalks are safe. You should know that. But if you missed it, or if that just didn't click the first time, then you're wandering around going, where am I going? What am I doing? What was the first thing that you wanted to change after playing through and watching people play through and watching our YouTubers?
The first thing that really got me was the run from Siren Night Chant to the Corrupted Fairies, and then immediately back. I was like, okay, surely we can do better than this.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have too many quest goals? Are the quest goals too far apart? How can we make this flow better?
the thing I would change, watching my son play this, he's 6, and he's just now able to read, and so he can kind of start getting into, the games that Dad's into, is that quest helper arrow.
The quest helper arrow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting tech involved in making that quest helper arrow work.
It is wonderful and strange.
Yeah, I can't live without it, but when it's on, it drives me crazy, because oftentimes, and this is what I see with my son playing, the quest helper arrow will tell you to cross the street.
Yes.
And we haven't yet taught you that that's a dangerous thing to do, and so you get pulled into combats in those early sections a lot. So I would like to go back and make the quest helper arrow better. So that's something that's on my to-do list for sure.
So one thing I should clarify is this is an initiative that we'll be tackling over many, many updates. So what's going to come out this summer is only the first of many changes that we're looking to do. That being said, the thing that I really wanted to change when I was going through for the first time most recently is enrollment, the quest enrollment. It is a very important quest because you meet your professors, you learn about Ravenwood, you get introduced to essentially what you're going to be doing, but it was so tedious that we had to take it out of the main line just because you had to run from here to there to there to there, and we just saw people dropping like flies and not wanting to get further in the game. So we've actually made it so that you're introduced more to your own professor instead of everybody else's professor. You don't have to run around the entire zone of Ravenwood, and you're taught better about how to train your spell, and it's more engaging and exciting, and we put it back on the main line because of that, and that makes me very excited.
And there's trickery that we can do now with little cinematic-y bits and cutscene type stuff that we couldn't do 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the only way to talk to every professor in Ravenwood was to go talk to every professor in Ravenwood. But now they can all stand there. There's another thing that we're doing in a side quest where you go rescue a guy and you find him hiding out. And when the quest is over, he's standing there next to the guy who originally gave you the quest.
Oh my gosh, revolutionary. We do that all the time in later worlds.
Right, 10 years ago that was very expensive, but now we're going to do it.
We recruited some people who were experienced gamers who knew games but had never played Wizard101 before. Watching them play was eye-opening. What are some of the things we talked about, not knowing that the sidewalks were safe? What are some of the other things that just surprised the heck out of us?
I was surprised. We had one playtester who didn't know how to initiate combat. So we were very focused on players who seemed to be getting more combat than they wanted. And we had at least one playtester who was frustrated because he didn't know how to make combat. And so we saw him using his mouse to actually click on the mod on the screen, thinking that would do it. And he was an experienced gamer, And I guess he was bringing some of his experiences from other games, and so he just expected to click on the guy and that would start the combat.
Sam, I know you said that when you were running through it the first time that you weren't sure how the pip system worked.
And that is part of me fast combating my way up to the end just to get all of the story. But yeah, there's a point I got this 2-pip spell, and from then on, every fight that I was in, it was grayed out. And
like, what's happening?
Is it broken? I don't understand. So just having one little bit in there that says, hey, if you want to cast this spell, do this. These are the sorts of things that we're aiming for to make the experience better, to teach you how to play as you're playing it. Because the little tutorial tips are nice, but it's very easy to miss them.
So what is the thing that you're most excited about the players to see in FTUE? Not necessarily the first thing you saw that you wanted to change, but the thing you're most excited about now that we're wrapping up development.
I am, well, you mentioned enrollment, and I am very eager to see how that plays. It's gone from such a clunky thing to such a more streamlined thing, and we've tried to put in a lot of flavor without having too much talking. So that's the part I'm very interested in.
I think for me, the changes that we're getting to the sigil. So we've asked for some changes for the sigil for new players, so that we can control how many mobs can add to the combat at the same time, to make it easier for the players and to make it better for people to join you, as opposed to something you don't want to happen, which it can feel that way oftentimes running in Unicorn Way. But in sort of having our tech people look at the sigils and things we can do with that, it also means that we might be able to do things like, a sigil that only holds 2 people or 3 people or 4 people or maybe even more than 4 people. Who knows what the future may hold. So
shocking.
To what magnitude has the story changed?
One of the things that we definitely wanted to do is we didn't want to rewrite it. This is not a rewrite of Unicorn Way.
No, I think our community would be really sad if we just completely scrapped it.
But what we did want to do is we wanted to make the story tighter, and we wanted it to be more consistent internally. For instance, Rattlebones. Who is he? Where'd he come from? Why is he there? As it was originally written, Siren's just like, oh yeah, Rattlebones, he's that dude over there. Was he in Wizard City all along? What's going on here? Little things like that. The other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to try to, to amp up the stakes and have a little bit of urgency going on. But we also, we were very interested in making sure that the story flowed, so that the problem you deal with the ghosts, and then going to Oriel and the fairies and have it all tied together, and then you get a clue that takes you back out to Ambrose. We wanted all that to be as tight as possible.
So is there anything you'd like to talk about the writing style?
Originally, when Unicorn Way was created, the game had not really found a voice yet and didn't know what it wanted to be. And so you can see that a lot. You can see it in how Merle talks. Is he this doddering old eccentric man, or is he one of the most powerful wizards in the spiral?
He alternates back and forth.
Could be both. And how young is the player character, and how much of a kid are we treating them like? We wanted to see if we couldn't put a little more emphasis on the fact that you are really good at what you're doing, and you are really special, and here you go.
We looked at a lot of quest completion through the beginning of the game, Unicorn Way. Can you talk to me about that data?
We record every time a player picks up a quest, and we record every time a player finishes a quest. And so if we have a marker that shows that someone started a quest and didn't finish it, especially if it's a mainline quest, that kind of means that the player left, right? So we want to avoid
we don't want that.
Yeah, we want to avoid any case where a player gets frustrated with a quest and can't finish it, especially early on in the game, because they haven't had a chance to see all the great content that we have. So, but it's a really tricky thing to try to solve, to figure out why someone didn't get there. If you look at the specific thing in the quest that they're on, it may be related to that quest, or it might be related to something else. Any places that we can get to streamline the game and get the players into the story, which is what we really, I think, that is the best thing we do at KingsIsle, is the story. So everywhere we can to get them into that story, we're trying to do that.
Another thing we did was we analyzed some of the spots where it might have been a little too tough. For example, Foul Gaze. Foul Gaze was very, very, very tough. And we think some of the folks might be seeing that and going, oh, hey, this is really tough. I don't want to play this anymore, because we saw a big drop off after that. So we went in and we tweaked the difficulty of Foul Gaze. So Foul Gaze should be a little more in line with the other bosses. What are some of the gameplay problems we're trying to solve in Unicorn Way?
There's a few small things I think that we're going to address that'll have a big impact. When you start the game, we start you with your starter wand that has some 0-pip attacks on it. And what we found with some of our playtesters is they had all those spells that looked the same, and they had just a couple of their own school spells, and it wasn't as interesting experience as it could be. It's a lot more magical. Now we have another starter wand in the game that has a different spell from each of the schools on it, and so we're going to start players with that one instead, so players get a better exposure to all the different spells they can see. The summoning spell itself, seeing something different each time, feels a lot better. And then one of the ones that I'm actually pretty excited about is we're going to put a 1-pip heal on that wand as well.
Ooh.
We found that players, and Sam mentioned this before, there's a 2-pip heal, and a lot of players would not ever get to that 2nd pip because they're casting their 1-pip over and over again.
Yeah, how do I use this?
Right, they kind of have to pass a turn. By the time that you need that heal, making the decision to pass a turn and get hit again.
It feels bad.
Right, it feels bad. It really just wasn't working. So adding that, I think, is going to make a big deal. And then we mentioned some of the stuff we're doing. We're going to reduce the aggro radius on the mobs so they don't pull you into combat quite as easily. To be easier to navigate across the street. You know, if the quest helper arrow drags you across the middle of a bunch of mobs.
We'll get there. We'll look into that.
We're going to make it so that the players can always outnumber the mobs on the sigil, so that having someone join your combat is a plus. They will help you finish the combat faster instead of necessarily dragging another mob into combat with them when they join with you.
Yeah.
So that should feel good to have help and not feel like a hindrance to have someone join your thing. And then probably the last thing is, over the years we've added a lot of side content in the game, and typically we put all of the NPCs for that right in the commons. So I can't even name all of them. You know, the Shutterbug is there, and the fishing people are there. All those people who are there.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. They just end up being a distraction to a new player. So we really want to make sure that a new player comes into the game and they're able to get their mind set on the story as quickly as possible. And so all those distractions lead them away from those quests. So that may be a reason someone doesn't finish a quest. If they get distracted and they find something else to do, and an hour from the time an hour from the time they got that quest, they may fall off for something unrelated to that quest entirely.
And we saw that in some of our playtesters. They would get distracted and go over and be like, "Oh, that's not where you're supposed to be."
Commons is already a very busy place with all the other wizards that are out there, which is a cool thing. Mm-hmm. But we're gonna move some of the NPCs who are not essential to the experience, or just hide them from new players so they can't see them until we want them to be introduced to those systems.
Well, we're really excited to get our FTUE, our first time user experience changes, out to test. That should be coming very soon, or now, depending on when this airs. We're really excited to get community feedback and see what y'all think, and we're very, very motivated to get our new wizards through Unicorn Way and feeling much more successful and ready to take on the spiral.